Prescott keeps. Pylon. Touchdown.
Cousins back to pass. He's going for all of it. Down the right sideline. Jackson there at the 20. He's gone all the way. Jackpot Jackson. Touchdown Redskins.
Somebody come help me. Okay. And they give the ball to Elliott, and he bangs it left guard and through. Touchdown Cowboys.
First off, Washington need to get their money back from Josh Norman. Now let's go. You're supposed to be a lockdown corner. You can't even play man-to-man.
Talked a lot. Let's get into it. I know your turkey didn't taste quite as good yesterday as Dallas improves to 10-1. My friend, how about them Cowboys?
You know, oh, damn. You know, look. Dak's all right, man. You know, he can really, really play. I mean...
Yeah. This is the only thing that made it bearable for me. This moment right here made my suffering a little better, thinking about this.
Look, I'm thinking about Dak Prescott, and listen, the numbers weren't that great in terms of 17, 2,495 yards, a touchdown, but watching him evade the rush, watching him audible at the line of scrimmage, watching him pick up blitzes, watching him scamper for one play after another using his wheels, you know, being big, being formidable. I got to give credit where credit is due. You know, listen, I got love for Dak and Ezekiel Elliott. I just can't stand the uniform that they're wearing because I hate their fans. But I got to admit that Dak's a bad boy, man. It's something that is just special about this brother. Having said all of that, let me say this. These Dallas Cowboys did give up 505 yards. I mean, the Redskins are only the fourth team in the NFL since 1940 to have 500-plus yards, not commit a single turnover, and still find a way to lose the game. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how disgusted I am at the Redskins this morning. Wasted 449 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, not a single interception by Kirk Cousins. Wasted shoulder injury where Jordan Reed is in a sling in the first half, still comes out in the second half, balls, catches that beautiful one-handed grab, okay, and that ultimately led to a touchdown. Wasted Deshaun Jackson's 67-yard touchdown catch, 118 receiving yards, etc., etc. This kid Kelly, the same dude who was chirping, who was talking about how the Cowboys are the cowgirls, 37 yards rushing. See what I'm talking about? When you're a rookie, wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac, sitting up there running your mouth before you proving a damn thing, and then you go on national TV on a Thanksgiving holiday, and you turn around, and what do? You rush for 37 yards? Oh, shut up. Go someplace. This is unbelievable to me that the Redskins somehow, some way, found a way. These skins found a way to lose this game. And then really, they were behind the 8 ball in terms of, you know, being 2 touchdowns down, being on an uphill climb. Gruden with his Mr. Boyd Genius himself, the onside kick. What was it? 9:22 left, 24-19, and you give the Dallas Cowboys a short field. And you know, what are you thinking about? You know, the 55-yard field goal attempt by Mr. Dustin Hopkins. This boy's been missing field goals, okay? What the hell would you try that for? I'm looking at Gruden. I'm looking at another little boy genius in Sean McVay, who wants to sit up there and prove himself. Clearly, he's an aspiring head coach before his time is due, trying to act like he's innovative, but ultimately, he's a little bit too cute. As my man Jerry Brewer wrote in the Washington Post, my former colleague at the Philadelphia Inquirer, love him. He's a great writer. All the best to him. I'm just sitting there, Jerry Brewer. Look, all of this stuff, too cute, offense, you know, the coaching is sloppy. But at the end of the day, the Dallas Cowboys won the game. I can't take it away from them today. But I did see things with the Cowboys defense that makes me say, hey, I ain't dead yet. they can still be an accident waiting to happen, but not Dak and Zeke. I know that.
The Cowboys, here's the bad news. Not only are they 10-1, they're really, really good. And look, part of the thing about the Cowboys fans going crazy about this team early on is every fan base, when your team's on a winning streak, starts to overrate the team and beat their chest and start to think about all the things that might go right and paint the rosiest possible picture for the future. But every once in a while, that scenario is what plays out, and that's the story with the Dallas Cowboys right now. The only thing the civilized world can hope for, because in polite society, you don't root for the Dallas Cowboys. Come on. The only thing the civilized world can hope for is that the inability of that front four, really front seven, but front four, to get pressure on the quarterback will be their undoing as we go forward. But Dak Prescott from preseason game 1, you can see it. I said yesterday, he reminds me of Tom Brady. Tom Brady, when he started out, it was game manager, takes what the defense gives him, doesn't try to force anything, and there's something about him. Same with Dak Prescott. Even the way when the defense comes off the field, the kind of love he gives them. You can see if you played defense, you'd want to play defense on a Dak Prescott team. He has that kind of charisma in addition to everything else, which is very important at the position. Ezekiel Elliott, he's been amazing. I mean, his speed, his straightaway breakaway speed is ridiculous. The offensive line is amazing. And maybe Kelly, maybe that was part of their plan, a decoy, because Dallas is very good against the run, and they were good against the run again yesterday, but they couldn't get pressure on Kirk Cousins so he could throw and throw and throw. Was it a mistake, the onside kick? Of course it was. They should not have done that. And yet Dallas, once again, wins a game, in this case, not only in a rivalry game, but against a very hot team that by and large played very well. A couple of missed field goals, one bad onside kick call, fine. But Dallas outplayed them. They beat them. This team is for real, and it is scary because one of the worst things that can happen in sports is that the Dallas Cowboys challenge for a Super Bowl, and all we can do at this moment is hope that it doesn't happen, Stephen A. Smith.
Well, I have to concede that I expect them to challenge for a Super Bowl. Right now, I'm at a point where I think that the only two teams in a position to beat the Dallas Cowboys are the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. I look at the Dallas Cowboys right now. They're just on a roll. Everything is going right. It doesn't seem to be the accident way to happen. But I also would like to point out this, and I think it's time to call these people out. Dak Prescott was a fourth-round pick, the number 135th pick overall. I think it's time, Max Kellerman, to call out the teams that passed up on Dak Prescott and drafted a quarterback. 7 quarterbacks were drafted ahead of him.
Well, who
Okay,
did
we're
you
not
just
going to
mention?
debate Carson Wentz. Hold on, let me
You
finish.
just mentioned the teams. You just mentioned the teams that you think.
Yeah, I understand. But I'm just thinking Carson Wentz, we're not going to get on Philadelphia. Jared Goff, I think the Rams drafted him just because he was out there in Cali and they were moving to Los Angeles and they tried to be homers, okay? Something to talk about with Jeff Fisher and those boys. The Denver Broncos in the first round, Paxton Lynch, 26th overall, and the Jets, Christian Hackenberg, all right, at the number 51 overall, round number 2. The New England Patriots, Jacoby Brissett, he was picked before Dak Prescott, okay? Then you can't blame him because, again, Tom Brady ain't going nowhere. So, I mean, that's probably why you wouldn't have grabbed a Dak Prescott. But then you're the Cleveland Browns, Cody Kessler. You're
right,
the
but
Oakland
Stephen
Raiders,
A., think about the
Connor
teams. Hold
Cook.
on. We get it. Think about the teams that you said are the only other 2 teams you see as Super Bowl challengers or who might be able to stop the Cowboys. You said the Patriots and you said the Seahawks.
That's why I'm not.
And
that's
Tom
why I'm
Brady.
That's why I'm letting them off the hook.
Well, no, I'm saying Tom Brady was drafted in the 7th round and Russell Wilson in the 3rd. So all 3 teams you think this year that are the legitimate challengers for the Super Bowl were picked way behind a ton of other quarterbacks. This is the way it works sometimes.
I don't know if you're Denver or you're the Cleveland Browns with Lynch or Cody Kessler that you should have made that move, though, but that's just me. But I hear you.
Stephen A., on the bright side, I've tasted your sister Carmen's cooking, so at least I know you ate well yesterday. So you have that going for you this morning. We move on.
Whatever, Molly. Whatever.
We move on to the matchup within the matchup. One of the storylines that dominated the game was Dez Bryant versus Josh Norman. In the trash talk, folks, it was at an all-time high. Dez, tell us about it.
Washington need to get their money back. The guy can't even go one-on-one. He bails and he holds. Never seen it before. Never just seen that out of a player.
I played him 3-4 times now, and those times, I don't even think he broke 30 yards or had any significance on any kind of game.
Do you feel like he saw the real Dez Bryant this time around?
Man, he got lucky, put it that way.
You're talking last year. When he was there.
He got lucky then. He got lucky this year, too. We could have roasted his ass.
This guy bumped into me like, what's up? Where I'm from, we didn't unload the clip, so pretty much whatever you want to do. Not that guy that you see a challenge from the face and back down. That's not me.
I honestly feel like the guy's extremely soft. I think he's just a bunch of talk. You know, if he was out and about, I wouldn't dare in my life let him talk to me like that.
Max, yesterday was a holiday. Lots of eyeballs on this game. Did they go too far?
No, this was awesome. I mean, this is what you love to see, that level of competitiveness. And really, I guess the spilling over, the tipping point where it really boiled over was when Norman's going to congratulate Dak and Dez gets in his face and all this. But it had been going on all game, and this is part of Josh Norman's value. Not the highest draft pick, not the most athletic guy at the position, not considered a shutdown corner, and yet, when he matches up with the other team's top receiver, or even when those two teams play, he manages to get under the guy's skin. Odell Beckham, as I said, last year, burnt him all over the field, like burnt Josh Norman. I don't care what Josh Norman says. We all saw the game. But Beckham started dropping passes. Beckham doesn't drop passes. Why did that happen? Once again, Dez Bryant's team wins the game. And Dez talking about, I'm going to show you all the times that Josh Norman got burnt and this and that. But the bottom line is, it's Dez who seems to be catching feelings behind what happened. Josh Norman is not only an excellent player, he has this ability. He's like a souped-up Cortland Finnegan in this respect. He has this ability to get under the wideout skin, the star wideout skin, to take him out of his game, to make him something usually less than he is. And you got to give it to Norman because that comes from his pure competitiveness. And it's one of the reasons, as much as I dislike the Washington franchise as a Giants fan, that he's one of my favorite players to watch. Not the most talented, but maybe the most competitive.
Max Kellerman, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but forgive me if I veer left a little bit and bring up something else. And I'm quite sure, I don't think you missed it or anything like that. My perspective is just different than yours, and I'm quite sure with your level of sensitivity, you'll appreciate where I'm about to go. There's a quote in here where Josh Norman is accusing Dez Bryant of telling him after the game, where I'm from, we unload the clip. Now, let me tell you something. As a black man in America, particularly seeing what has transpired in the streets of Chicago over the last several years, where we're talking about murder after murder after murder that has been taking place and bodies falling by the wayside and lives being lost. And we're talking in an age about police brutality, and we've got folks like Colin Kaepernick before he revealed what a hypocrite he was because of his unwillingness to vote and to exercise and activate himself in the last election or any election for that matter, because we've learned that he's never registered to vote according to himself. I mean, the fact of the matter is we've got some real serious issues as it pertains to violence in America, and in particular in the black community. And so when you've got two brothers who are unquestionably elite, I know both of them, at least a little bit. I consider them both to be really good brothers that I'm incredibly proud of, the things that they've accomplished in their professional careers and beyond. This is not the kind of language we need to be hearing from them. You can't sit up there being elite as you are, being the winners that you are, thinking about your futures and the kind of impact that you're trying to have, not just on the football field, but extending beyond that. And then literally go in front of the media and start echoing stuff like this. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, because to Dez Bryant's credit, he categorically denied that he had said what Josh Norman said he said. But if he is wrong, if he's lying, if he did say that, it's wrong, and we need to make sure it's clear. He don't need to be saying that to anybody.
I'm glad you brought that up, Stephen A.
And if you're Josh Norman, you damn sure don't need to be going to the media and telling the media that he said those words to you, because it's not just about you at that particular moment in time. It carries far, far, far more weight, and it contributes to the stereotypes that are attached to young black men and what they're willing to resort to in the event that there's some kind of disagreement where, by and large, we are law-abiding citizens that don't need to go that route. So I just think it's important that we make sure I got nothing but love and respect for both of them, Dez and Josh. But something like this, first of all, should never be said. And number two, and more, and just as important, if it was said between you two, that's not something you need to be going to the media.
That's where I disagree.
And telling everybody.
I think you're raising a very good point, because that's what jumped out at me, too, that comment. I disagree that Norman shouldn't say it if Dez said it to him. If he's making it up, obviously that's bad. But if Dez actually said that, what Norman is, I mean, that's the indicator. Dez plays himself when he says that. What he's saying is, the feelings he has are so serious. Josh Norman was able to affect him like that emotionally, that he says something like that to him. He has to take it to that place, because that's how much Josh Norman got a hold of his brain in that situation. No. And Josh Norman reporting what Dez Bryant said, Dez didn't have to say it. He said it. Josh said, this is what this dude told me. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Norman reporting that.
There's nothing wrong with it if it's just about you two, but when you say it to the media, you're disseminating that kind of message to the masses, and then all of a sudden, we're not just thinking about the two individuals, we're thinking about a community and the stereotypes that we have to fight against and battle against every single day.
That's
not
fair.
to mention, Max, that also Josh Norman stepped up and said at the end of it is that, hey, if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. We could end the clip we could end it out on the field all day, every day. I'm just saying that you got to think about it beyond that. Listen, they're both good brothers, and I understand that we are sitting up here talking about it, and it can be viewed as being taken out of context. But it's important that they understand that the reason that I brought it up, the reason that I'm mentioning it, is because I happen to know that there are a bunch of people out there who don't look like us, don't share our culture, that are going to take it the way that I fear they're going to take it, and that's what I think the players need to watch out for.
Fair enough. Let's leave it there. All right, so listen to this. Every single game this season, the Lions have trailed in the fourth quarter, and the games have been decided by 7 points or fewer. Now, to put this in perspective, since 2008, 8 teams have trailed in the fourth in each of their first 11 games in a season. Detroit, they're 7-4, while the other 7 teams were a combined 4-73 through 11 games.
Charmed life. Charmed life, we'd be up by 30 in the fourth quarter. That's fair, yeah. We're just battling. I think that's more than anything. We don't feel lucky to be down in every fourth quarter. We feel like we're working our tails off to get wins, and have still yet to put together, a 3-phase, 60-minute game where we all play really well. But as we're learning about our team and building and getting better, we're finding ways to win games, and that's important.
I like what Stafford had to say there. Yesterday was no different as they beat the Vikings for the second time this season and claimed the top spot in the NFC North. Stephen A., are the Lions lucky or are they good?
I think they're good. I got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, anytime you go out there and you show the level of resiliency that they have put on display, you got to give a lot of credit. I got to give credit to Jim Caldwell. I didn't think he was long for this job, particularly the way they struggled last year. But when you look at the way that they've won this year, they've now beaten Minnesota twice. They're 7-4. They're on a roll right now, and they've got holes everywhere. Their running game isn't that great, even though yesterday they averaged more than 4.5 yards per carry. And really, with Theo Reddick, there were no yardages for loss, so that's really impressive. The wide receivers showed up after having an off week, particularly Anquan Bolden in third down situations. Plus, he registered their only touchdown, and Golden Tate has been balling as well. Ebron was without a catch, though. They still won. their offensive line wasn't doing a good job of protecting Matthew Stafford pretty much throughout the game. They still won. Their defensive line wasn't able to get any kind of pressure whatsoever on Sam Bradford for most of the game, yet they still won. And as you pointed out, they've trailed in the fourth quarter of every single game this year, yet they've managed to come back and win 7 of those 11 games. So it's about time to give them respect and love where it's due, because anytime you show that level of resiliency and you respond to that level of adversity, that is a huge plus. But in particular, when it comes to a guy like Matthew Stafford, we knew he had the talent. We knew he could make the requisite throws. We knew he could run with the football as well, which he showed us yesterday. But what we didn't know is that he would be and could be this type of leader. He clearly is. He deserves a lot of credit. I'm going to lean towards good a hell of a lot more than I'm going to lean towards luck.
But the answer is luck. And Matthew Stafford is in the MVP conversation. He wouldn't get my vote right now if I had one, but he is one of the names that should come up. He's having a fantastic year. Look, take it from a New York Football Giants fan. I know it when a team gets a little lucky. And by the way, most NFL teams are 8-8 kind of teams. The ones that you think of as kind of good got a little lucky. They were +2 in turnover differential a couple games, and they wind up 10-6. The kind of teams you think aren't so good, they got unlucky in that way. They wound up 6-10. I mean, but those are both basically the same 8-8 teams. But I will admit that those kind of teams, when they have a special quarterback, seem to eke out these kind of games. As I mentioned, the Giants, generally if they have a defense, which the Lions don't really have, but their bend but not break defense allowed them to keep the score low. And when the score is low, there are more possibilities at the end of the game because one score can win it, which is what the Lions did to the Vikings. If you look at their point differential, Stephen A., they're 7-4 in 11 games. They're +9 on the season. They're winning games their average point differential per game is less than 1 point. That's essentially a 500 team with a good quarterback. That's gotten a little lucky. Let me tell you some teams that are ahead of them in point differential. The Ravens are +12. It's 1 point better, but they're 5-5. The Cardinals, Arizona, you don't think of as having a good season. They're not, because it doesn't show up in the wins and losses. They're +36 on the year, and yet they're 4-5-1. The Chargers are +14 on the year, 4-6. These are all teams who have outscored the opponents by more than the Lions have, and yet you think of the Lions differently. They deserve credit for the fourth quarter comebacks. Stafford deserves credit. The team deserves credit. Congratulations. But there's a little luck involved here. They're fundamentally not a really good team. They're fundamentally an average NFL team where the balls bounced their way basically a couple times this year. That's what's going on, if we're honest. And by the way, the Giants rode that and a great defense to 2 Super Bowl wins in recent years. So, I mean, I know it when I see it.
Well, if you know it when you see it, then that debunks your whole argument, because you brag about the Giants and their 2 Super Bowl championships every chance you get. And not one time have I ever heard you mention the word luck. I'm sure you know it exists, but I never heard you mention it. So let's be clear about
Stephen
that.
A., it was
one.
skill.
Number 2,
don't listen to him. It was skill. That was not luck.
I'm just saying, listen,
I'm not disputing what Max is saying.
Quarterback. Whoa. I'm not disputing what you're saying, my brother. What I'm saying to you is that you left luck out when you talk about the Giants, but you're bringing it in here. I'm just
totally
saying that your strategy has been exposed. That's all I'm trying to say.
No,
but in 6 of the last 7 games, I understand, but in 6 of the last 7 games, the Detroit Lions have won. And along that way, they've beaten the Eagles, they've beaten the Redskins, and they've beaten Minnesota twice. I can't ignore that.
By the way, that's an outrageous claim that you're making. It's totally different. I bring it up now because it fits my argument now. It doesn't fit my argument when I talk about the Giants.
I understand that. That's what I'm saying.
Max Kellerman, the Giants, all skill.
Exactly
Big blue,
what I'm
baby,
saying.
all day. Let's leave it there.
Let me be very, very clear. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you can't beat Scott Tolzien, I don't even want to talk about you no more. I mean, if they lose to this dude, we might have to talk about them tomorrow because we're going to revisit the results of today's games. But that's about it. I don't even want to talk about the Steelers anymore. Now, you can't beat Scott Tolzien. You can't. Him? You got to be kidding me. I ain't want to hear it.
Really hitting that zine hard, Stephen A. Ask and you shall receive. The Steelers dominated at Indy with a 28-7 win. Business. It was booming for Antonio Brown with 3 TDs. This Colts team was decimated by injuries, most notably, of course, Andrew Luck. Mr. Smith, your Steelers, how much stock are you putting into that win?
Nothing. Didn't mean anything to me. I fully expected them to win. My stock would have been had they lost. Had they lost, it would have dropped. It would have plummeted into an abyss, never to return for the rest of this season. You can't beat the Indianapolis Colts with Scott Tolzien starting as your quarterback instead of Andrew Luck. I would not have wanted to hear it. But then take into consideration, not only did that happen, but safety Clayton gave this. He didn't sit there. He didn't play because he was injured before the game. Ryan Kelly, your center, got hurt during the game. You know, what is it? Vontae Davis, he hurt his groin injury. He couldn't play. Denzel Good, shoulder and neck. He couldn't play. T.Y. Hilton, we all know what a bad boy he is. He ultimately ended up getting hurt his back. Robert Mathis hurt his elbow. So everywhere you turned, they were decimated by injuries if you were the Indianapolis Colts. When you combine that with Big Ben Roethlisberger, being able to hook up with Antonio Brown, who, by the way, is one of the top 2 to 3 receivers in the game, somebody that we debated was the best receiver in the game of football at the start of this season, and you have him in single coverage, you better have scored 3 touchdowns against the Colts. So I'm not putting much stock in it other than to say this. The Pittsburgh Steelers did what the hell they were supposed to do. So there is no abyss to fall in, never to be returned or never to be seen again for the rest of this season. That much I will give them. But I'm not putting much stock in it. It's just that now they don't fall into the abyss. I'm not overwhelmed. They were supposed to do this. This is what's called handling your business.
Even had they lost, whatever, short week, you lose to a team you should beat. It happens to most teams throughout the course of the season. It doesn't mean they would have lost the division. The Ravens are sitting there 5-5. I just spoke about their point differential. They're not that good. I never thought the Steelers were going to be that great this season as many others did. But without Martavis Bryant, you still figure you got a really good offensive line. You got a great future Hall of Fame quarterback who's playing at a very high level still. You have arguably the best receiver in the game. And I think you have certainly the best running back in the game, though it doesn't look like it this season. So what did we see here yesterday? And by the way, Tolzien was game. Tolzien was he was a good competitor yesterday, just didn't have enough to work with, and he was against a better team. So I agree that the Steelers' defense looked a little maybe better than they really are yesterday. If you're thinking that's what they are defensively, those picks late in the game, that's not really them. That's a desperate, quarterback who hadn't played in a long time just trying to make something happen because his team is losing and they were picking him off. Big deal. But the offensive line played very well. Ben Roethlisberger threw 3 touchdown passes. They always do against Antonio. Ben Roethlisberger threw 3 touchdown passes to Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell not only ran for 120 yards, but 80-plus were before contact. I mean, the offensive line was playing really well. My point, but there were times this season, Stephen A., where I looked at that offensive line, I thought, not what I thought it was going to be. They're back. So now my point is the Steelers are who I thought they'd be to begin the season. A team kind of like the Oakland Raiders or the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints in the sense that they have a really good offensive line, some elite skills position players, and a high-powered offense. And the question is, how well can they play defense? I believe not enough to be a serious Super Bowl threat, but certainly well enough to win the division. I think if you're a Steelers fan, you got to look at yesterday and say, yep, that's the team I thought they'd be. High-powered offensive team with a chance to win any given Sunday, or in this case, Thanksgiving Day. I think that's what you got to take away from it.
The operative words that you threw out there is looking at them yesterday, because the whole premise of it all was this. Had you went up against this particular Indianapolis Colts team, led by Ryan Grigson, coached by Chuck Pagano, without the services of Andrew Luck, against that defense that was going to put Antonio Brown in single coverage because they were so decimated by injuries. If you were the Steelers and you had went out on that field Sunday night in Indianapolis and stunk up the joint or managed to lose to that team, you would have gotten that. To me, there's no way that anybody would have been able to make the argument that you just make. Certainly your argument is salient and profound at this particular juncture because they handled their business yesterday. But had they not handled their business yesterday, which was my point, it would have been a disaster. And I'm telling you right now, I would have been finished with them had they lost last night's game to this Indianapolis Colts team.
Nobody, like, let's say the playoffs were to start today and the Steelers were in them. No, if your draw was the Steelers, if you have to play that team, even if you're a fundamentally better team because you're balanced on both sides of the ball, you're still like, maybe we could have gotten some other some other team, not those guys.
Not against
because
that
they
defense.
are so special on offense on the line.
Defense.
No, not the defense, but the quarterback, the wideout, and the running back are basically as good as it ever gets. You rarely have that three combination behind a good offensive line as the Steelers do right now.
Business booming, business handled. Steelers are in first in the AFC North. And you know what's going to be fun? Next week, a week from Sunday, we have Max's Giants versus Stephen A's Steelers. I think we need a little wager, gentlemen, coming up on the line. Speaking of knowing what it's like to be in first, Dak Prescott is doing things that have never been done in a Cowboys uniform. But will he be able to take his team to the Super Bowl? We discuss.
Prescott running right on the right side of the end zone. It'll be Terrence Williams. I'll catch it. Touchdown, Cowboys. Prescott keeps. Pylon. Touchdown. Back goes Prescott. Bryant, a leaping catch at the 5.
Over and over again, at critical moments, he came up with big plays. He just played winning football for us, and he did the things that winning quarterbacks do. I just thought he was outstanding throughout this ball game.
You are right, Jason Garrett. Dak Prescott has now won 10 straight starts as a rookie, the second most in NFL history. The only other rookie quarterback to win more, it's one Ben Roethlisberger. Not bad company to be in. Stephen A., from what you saw yesterday, can Dak take this squad all the way to Houston for the Super Bowl?
No, I'm not giving him that. I mean, I'm not saying yes or no to it, but I'm saying y'all are not going to get me to sit on national television and concede a damn thing until I absolutely positively have to. It's week 10 of the regular, week 11 rather, of the regular season. The playoffs have not arrived yet. The competition that he's going against has been decent. He is to be respected for how phenomenal he has looked. Listen, I am a Cowboy hater extraordinaire who is fully capable of loving certain members of the Cowboys. Michael Irvin is my man to the end of time. So is Emmitt Smith, and I have profound respect for Troy Aikman, who does an exceptional job as an analyst, by the way, not just as a 3-time Super Bowl champion quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys during this heyday. Just because I can't stand their fan base, because I think the Dallas Cowboys fan base is the worst, most delusional, obnoxious fan base in American history, and I just can't stand them, doesn't mean that I ignore the greatness that I see from individual players wearing their team's uniform. Having said all of that, it will force me to hold down the fort and to make sure that we don't jump out ahead of the game and give respect before it's due. Dak Prescott is a stud. He's big time. But that doesn't mean he is profound enough to overcome the perpetual accident waiting to happen that is the Cowboys that we have known them to be. Until he proves otherwise, which comes postseason time, I ain't giving him a damn thing more than I just gave him. I'm holding down the fort. That is where I stand.
Now, come on. You know it when you see it. You mentioned Ben Roethlisberger, who, by the way, wasn't very good in the playoffs.
Nothing yet.
Wasn't very good in the playoffs the first time round. I mean, he made a tackle in the open field after throwing an interception, but you could see Ben Roethlisberger was a great football player. You can see the same thing in Dak Prescott, and you can smell it on a guy. You're not always going to be right about it, but you can have a pretty strong sense of the kind of player that would, play big in the big moments when you needed them to most. And Dak Prescott has there's every indication that he's that kind of guy. Again, it's been that way since the first time you saw him in preseason, if you're honest with yourself. Can Dak Prescott win a Super Bowl as a rookie? The answer is absolutely yes. He can do it. I'm not saying they will, but if they don't, it's not going to be because of Dak Prescott. It'll be because of the defense, as I mentioned earlier. They have a problem getting pressure on the quarterback. So as you saw yesterday, Kirk Cousins, who's a very good quarterback, having an excellent season this year, you can say that about him. But Kirk Cousins, looked like Peyton Manning because he had all day to throw. That will be, if they are undone, their undoing will be their inability to get pressure on the quarterback. It will not be Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott will not be the reason they don't win, if they don't win, because I'm here to tell you, and I think I just spat up in my mouth a little bit even thinking about it, the Cowboys can win the Super Bowl this year. I can't even say it. Don't make me say it. But Stephen A., it ain't going to be because of Dak Prescott if they don't. That guy's got it written all over him. He's a winner.
So Dak Prescott's not capable of having a bad game?
He's capable of it, sure, but ain't going to happen when you need him the most.
Dak Prescott's not capable of having a bad game come playoff time?
Derek Jeter was capable of having a bad game, but you wanted him up with the game on the line. Dak Prescott's that kind of dude, man. What are you going to deny that? You can see it.
Those are the things you say. Those are the things we said once Derek Jeter went to the postseason and proved he was Derek Jeter.
In his
We're
rookie
waiting for
season.
that with Dak Prescott. We shall see.
In his rookie season, he did it. Tom Brady, too.
Look at the team he had with him.
Huh?
Look at the team he had with him. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not giving Dak Prescott anything yet. I acknowledge he's a young stud. I ain't giving it up. Not yet.
You just
I'm
want
going to hold down the fort. I'm going to hold down the fort.
You stay with
I'm
that.
hold it down.
You do that. The Seahawks, Legion
I'm
of
not
Boom,
moving.
they might have something to say about it as well.
I ain't giving them anything more than I've already given them. Nothing else.
Okay.
Him or Zeke. And I know they studs. But damn it, show it in the postseason. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Please don't, Dak. You don't need to show it in the postseason.
Let's
Let them
leave it
stick
there,
up during
gentlemen.
the postseason and let's see what we're saying then.
We got more to get into because it is going down at the shoe for a place in the college playoff. The guys will pick that game as well as many others in our quick takes. Stay here. Let's finish the show with some quick takes on some of the storylines from the weekend we want to get into. Let's start with the Big Ten game. Of course, we just mentioned, Max, these two teams do not like each other. Are you going Michigan or Ohio State?
I'm going Michigan, even on the road, even against maybe a more talented team. It's going to be close, and I like the Harbaugh team in that case.
I'm rolling with Ohio State. Michigan got destroyed by them last year. It was assisted by the fact that Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 214 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's now with the Dallas Cowboys. But also J.T. Barrett ran for 139 yards and had 3 touchdowns last year. He's still there. Devion Smith, I expect him to be better this year. He only had 23 yards rushing against Ohio State last year. I think it's going to be a tighter game. I think it's going to be more hard fought. I don't think they'll get as embarrassed heavily, but I still think that Ohio State, because of J.T. Barrett, will find a way to win this game.
Michigan State may have given everyone the blueprint. We'll see, or at least Michigan.
We shall see. Gentlemen, the Raiders need one more win to record their first winning season since 2002. Will they get it done against the Panthers? It's going to be a good one. Stephen A.
You know what? Believe it or not, I'm going to roll with the Panthers in this particular game. I think they're desperate. They know they can't afford another loss, although I think their hopes of getting to the playoffs are dashed. I think Cam Newton and the crew shows up against Oakland in this particular game. I think Oakland is talented. They'll make the playoffs, but I think they're feeling themselves just a touch, and I think they get brought down to earth a little bit and reminded that they still have work to do. I see the Panthers escaping with a close victory in this one.
Oakland, like a lot of high-flying offenses, I still believe is a little overrated, but less overrated than I used to think they were. I think they are actually improving. I agree with Stephen A. that the Panthers are in a desperate situation, and if you remember last year, this is when Cam really started balling, right about now. And yet I got to go with the Raiders. I think that they are not only were winning the close games, but they've come on recently and are starting to have the look of an actually good team, not just a high-flying offensive team that got a little lucky in their wins and losses. I like the Raiders.
We're going to learn a lot about both those teams on Sunday and these two. A battle of 7-3 teams in the AFC West between the Broncos and Chiefs. Max, who you got?
I like the Broncos. You know, I saw it for the same reason I was wrong about the Vikings, obviously, and the Lions yesterday. But for the same reason I like the Vikings, the Broncos at a certain point in this season looked special to me. You know, not as well balanced and like the Chiefs, but they had a special look on the defensive side of the ball. And generally, I prefer that kind of team. If you can show me something extra, something that I believe is elite in the league, I tend to favor that team. And I think that's the Broncos, and I think they can get back to being that team. I like them over the Chiefs.
I don't see the Chiefs losing 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to pick them to win this game.
All right, LSU has zeroed in on Houston's Tom Herman as its next coach and could have a deal in place as early as Saturday, sources telling our Chris Lowe. But another source is telling our Brett McMurphy that Herman hasn't ruled out an offer from Texas. Stephen A., where will Herman be coaching when we come back on Monday?
I have no idea. I'm just guessing, but I'm going to pick Texas. And the reason I'm going to pick Texas is very, very simple. Two things. The money that they're going to throw at him and the fact that he won't have to worry about going up against Nick Saban, because I think Nick Saban is making it very hard for most coaches in this country to want to coach in the SEC because they don't want to go up against him.
I actually think the SEC would be a draw there, and LSU can almost match Texas in money. And importantly, LSU hasn't done a coach the way Texas is doing Charlie Strong right now. Sorry, Coach O. I think he winds up at LSU.
All right, Tom Brady seeking his 200th career win, which could tie Peyton Manning for the most combined regular season and postseason wins by a quarterback in NFL history, but will be without Rob Gronkowski. Max, will they get it?
Yes. Yes.
Stephen A.?
I agree. I agree. They're going up against the Jets. Can't even decide what quarterback they need out there most weeks right now. It's a bad situation for Bowles. Talent is suspect right now. Not enough weapons for Fitzpatrick. I'm going with Brady and the Pats.
Max, we'll see you on TV Saturday with the fight. Good luck, have fun, and we'll see you all on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for being with us.